Um, anyway, I'm Helen Shapiro, and I'm so glad that you've decided to participate in our remote UCDC program. And we're excited to welcome you to our first professional development session, Social Branding Yourself from LinkedIn to Virtual Networking. Future sessions will start next week, a UCDC alumni panel, followed by another the following week on Zoom etiquette. And we'll keep you posted about other sessions that will occur in our biweekly newsletter coming forward. We are in a new remote world, and we are going to all learn how to navigate this together. And I say this not just about you students, but staff and faculty alike are all learning. We're all learning how to do our jobs online and engage in this new format, and it's kind of exciting. So a couple of reminders before I introduce Scott Talon. If you're still searching for internships, work with your program administrator, and don't worry. Even pre-COVID, it was not unusual to not yet have an internship at this point in time. So don't worry and work with your PA. And also starting today, you can enroll in UCDC courses. So if you haven't yet, after this session, be sure to go online so we know which courses you're most interested in. Okay, with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Scott Talon, who we turned to immediately when we decided to go remote. As you can see from his bio, he's the perfect person to walk us through this new universe. And as a UC Davis alum, he has been a strong supporter of UCDC and our students as he continues to be. So with that, let me turn it over to Scott and his colleague.
Thank you, Helen, and welcome everyone. Pleasure to be here, and I want to show representing UC Davis alums. So hope there's some other Aggies joining us today. And everyone, if my microphone makes too much noise and scratches, let me know. I want to just unhook and we'll just go en natural. So don't hesitate, anyone, if it's too much noise on my end. I'm excited to talk about two of my favorite topics, personal and professional branding, and then virtual networking, including on LinkedIn. We're going to rock and roll. We're going to cover a lot of things. And the idea is that, hey, you might find like, wow, there's too much here, I can't keep up. That's fine. We're going to follow up with you. We're going to give you stuff to check out and do and steps and everything. So the idea is that you hear a concept, get interested, maybe jot a note of something you didn't know. And that's how we learn. And that's how we're going to learn together. So I want to give some shout outs to the people that are helping today. Michael, Yenna, Young Chan, Shay, and Anju. Thank you all. Anju will be joining with some of the content, but anyone and everyone, we're here working together and learning together. So don't hesitate to raise your hand, make a comment, and if something's wrong, let us know, okay? All right, so do we have the answers to our University California campus poll?
Yes, we do. So we'll share the results so everyone knows what kind of company they're keeping here in this room. A lot of you see Irvine today.
Davis isn't bad. It's tied for second with a couple of others. That's great. Yeah. And this is the type of thing we're going to be doing on some content items, having these polls, and that'll help in all the way through. So let's jump into this. This has a brand, doesn't it? Vitamin water. This certainly has a brand, doesn't it? iPhone. So we're used to physical things being branded. How does this strike you to hear that you're branded, that people are branded, that in a sense, we are brands too? Anyone have some thoughts, including like, it's yucky and scary to like, whatever it is? Any thoughts from anyone? All right, so we're going to help this along here. So this is something that Anju will explain to do, and some answers have already come in to this question. What comes to mind when you think brand? And someone puts Coca-Cola, one of the most famous legendary brands in the world. Logos. Yes, a logo, like Vitamin Water, this is kind of their logo, but that's not a brand. That's the visible part of the brand. And then someone interestingly puts story, and that's increasingly so important because stories connect with people and people understand stories. And that helps brands come alive to tell their brand story. All right. Speaking of which, it's sort of crumpled because I just ate it. This is my lunch. Anyone ever had a Cliff Bar before? Well, on the back, they tell the whole story. And it says, Cliff Bar is named after my father, Clifford, my childhood hero. And he goes through this whole thing about being in the mountains and deciding the other energy bars weren't that good and making a Cliff Bar. Their brand story is right on the back of the package. Intimidating.
Yeah. So just to take a moment, and everyone, we're just trying to get your voices heard. I know it may be hard to see each other's faces, but if you go to menti.com and use the code 221482, you can also submit what you're thinking, your thoughts on this board that we're all looking at.
I'm going to do this too. So simply go to menti.com, and then when the little box pops up, put in the code 221482. Let's see what else we get. Celebrities, marketing. Helen, have you participated in this question yet? You're welcome. I'm going to do it.
Oh, identity is coming up as a big contender here. A lot of people are conjuring up the word identity.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating because on one hand, I could see that answer, but that's really other people's perception of your identity. That's really not you. So the real you is got a brand around it, and this is what this is connecting to. And to think about that, people, especially if they just meet you or you're new to a workplace, they don't know you yet, right? They might know your name, they might know what school you're at, but this idea of your brand identity, that's what they know about you. They don't know you as a person, but your brand identity. Anju, what other things are here that seem interesting? Yeah. Recognizable?
A lot of words related. Oh, there's the word you. There's words that describe how you can distinguish because of brand. So there's distinction, there's recognizable, recognition.
I think
Kardashians.
Oh, wow. Yes. I have mixed feelings on the Kardashians. I don't know if they're all that great for America, but they sure are great to talk about in class. Someone I think is a marketing major because they put generic versus premium. And that's super interesting. Generic is basically no real brand at all. And that's why it's cheaper. And then if you think about premium, gasoline is basically the same. And yet it costs more depending where you go. Exxon in Washington, D.C. is really expensive. They have a brand premium. They say it's cleaner, better gas. So this is how the branding works. It adds value, which means companies can charge more and there's more perceived value. Oh, I love this. Feelings and long-term trust. Both of these are so important. We have emotional relationships with brands. That's something to think about. It might sound a little bit silly, but we do. Example, I love Adidas shoes. I don't like Puma. It doesn't make much sense, especially when you know the history that two brothers started each company from the same town in Germany. But there's one that I like and the other one, Puma, I don't like as much. We have these relationships and people have the same thing with you when you're branded. And this is why it's so important we talk about this. So let's pause. Let's have Scott relax a little bit because I get very excited on this topic. Anju, any final thoughts on the word cloud and what we just saw or things to highlight?
Yeah, for me, the most compelling, when I think about the word brand, the most compelling ideas for me are the value, the impression, the story, the feelings that something imbues you with just through this just kind of recognition. So I'm very in sync, or I feel very in sync with the crowd here today. Yeah.
So it's something to think about. What brands do you resonate with? And then maybe think why that is. And then what attributes do they have that have meaning for you? And then you could understand your relationship with the brands that you like or even the brands that you don't like and why that is. We'll give you insights into brands and branding and then about personal branding, which we're going to step into right now. So Anju, do we want to ask about what people's own brand perceptions are of themselves? What do you think?
Yes. So in your Menti screens, if you're still on your Menti screens, it should have advanced to the next question. And while we're using this platform right now to just pool your thoughts and also to get everyone engaged, we welcome you to show your cameras and also use your mics if you want to engage just verbally or visually. So please feel free to just imagine that we're all in a room and that we're trying to all work together and spend this time together. But in the meantime, we have Mentimeter happening, and the question now is, what is your brand? How are you different? So using all that we brainstormed about what brands are, like how we just spent some time together to define brand, what does it mean when this concept is applied to you? What does it trigger for you? How would you like for yourself to be perceived? And not yourself. How would you like for you to be perceived by others? So I'm going to guess that submission that you see on the screen right now is Professor Scott Talon, traveler, connected, social.
Ding, ding, ding. Why am I the quickest today? Sophia, Jade, and others, where are you? Let's hear from everyone. This is anonymous, so we won't know, but it's also something to think about. How would you describe yourself? How do you want to be perceived? Smart, hardworking, trustworthy, responsible, engaging, creative, worldly. Oh, how nice to see that. The word kind there. Oh, there's a couple of kinds. This is wonderful. So whoever put trustworthy environmentalist, those two go together, because I think to build those credentials in today's political climate, you need to be trustworthy if you want to impact environmental policies and impact change and positive change with regards to the environment.
Yeah. So I see why there was a little bit of delay, because people are giving really meaningful answers. So first generation Lebanese immigrant, strong-minded. Oh no, it keeps them.
There it is. Wow, that's a great one. And I noticed on that one, they had some fun stuff in there. Passion for fashion and dance, right? This doesn't have to be always about just what we think of as the professional things in life. Employers and companies hire people, right? And part of that is what you do outside of work. Part of that is your hobbies. It's not part of your job responsibility, but it's part of you and who they hired. And that's okay. On my resume, I put down that I play croquet. Believe it or not, but I do. It's because I love croquet. We have some truth tellers, direct, honest. Like this one, open-minded, flexible, fair. So now as we're reading these and looking at these, you might see some words that apply to you. That's good. And you might say, well, really, maybe I'm not so much like this. The bottom line is you need to determine the top half dozen to start sort of attributes that are most valuable to you and most valuable to an employer. And then start thinking about, how do you communicate those things? How do you display those things? The best example I can give to illustrate this point is, let's be honest, in an interview, anyone can say they're hardworking, right? It's pretty easy. I just did it. I'm hardworking. Okay, since anyone can say it, how do you demonstrate it? That's the key thing. And so be thinking about this idea of, how do you demonstrate these attributes? It could be in terms of, what you did in the downtime during summer. It could be how many things you did during the semester. It could be what you did in an internship earlier on in terms of extra tasks that you weren't assigned. But think about ways in this example that you can let people know that you are hardworking, so that you just don't have to claim it. I'm hardworking, but that it shows that what you have online, on LinkedIn, on your own website, if you have it that way, on your resume, all indicate, wow, they're hardworking. All right. Okay. Anything more on that, Andrew, before we head off to the next part of this? And again, I want to also pause for anyone here, especially from UC Irvine, which has the most of any campus, at least earlier on in the webinar. Any comments, any reactions, any thoughts? Scrolling through.
This was a while ago, but Jade did mention that she loves Cliff Bars.
Yes, Jade, that makes two of us. I carry them everywhere, car, home, office. All right, so I wanted to share a little bit about why you should brand yourself, and then I want to get in and talk about a quick way that you can improve your brand literally within about 2 minutes. And then I want to show you some basics of building your brand. And remember, we're going to give you this stuff afterwards. So if it seems like we're going fast, it's because we have an hour together and we have some big topics. But later on, you can look at what we send you in terms of steps to show you. All right. So why brand yourself? Anyone have a guess? While you're thinking about it, I'll give you this stat. Close to 90% of employers use LinkedIn and or Facebook in order to find and recruit employees. Up to 90%. That was pre-pandemic. So you can imagine it would only be higher. All right. That's because employers choose people. They don't choose resumes. A resume is supposed to get you the interview, but they need to find you. And part of what's happening here is they're getting overwhelmed with online submissions. So instead of getting 500 submissions for a job, what they do is they go online and look on social networks. They see who's active in their space, and then they reach out to you, right? And this is something that we'll talk about in LinkedIn. If you ever get a message from a recruiter, please don't think this is, a scam or something fake. The odds are pretty slim that it is. These recruiters are hired by companies in order to find you. That's why they're messaging you. And we'll talk more about that on LinkedIn. So there's that sort of stat to think about in terms of employers and their use. But here's another thing which sounds almost philosophical. This question: if you're not branding yourself, are you still branded? Question mark. If you're not branding yourself, are you still branded? Question mark. What do you think? Anyone have a thought to this? A reaction?
Yeah, Jade is nodding yes. And I think it kind of ties in with her comment in the chat. She says, you want to brand yourself because if you don't, someone else will.
That's the thing. So in DC, I see something every semester in the winter that would be no big deal in California because the weather's so nice. But here it actually can snow and it gets cold. There will be a kid, often a guy, and they'll be in shorts and flip-flops, and it's like freezing, 32 degrees. And they might literally be from California and never have had winter clothes. But from the perception of people seeing them, they become the flip-flop guy. Oh, that's the guy that wears shorts in winter, right? That's all we know. This guy could be a rocket scientist, a Rhodes Scholar, and the most kind person on the planet. We don't yet know that. We just know what we see, our perception. So that's a little bit of a sort of off-the-wall example to let you into this notion about perception, and that people will still brand you because there's a vacuum there and they want to fill it in. Who's that guy in the shorts and flip-flops? That's all they know. Now here's another thing to think about. Employers have three big concerns about hiring professionals, which you will shortly be when you graduate. What do you think the biggest concern is for an employer when they look at social media? Anyone want to have a guess? I'll give you a hint. It is not party pictures and socializing. That is not the biggest concern. What do you think employers are concerned when they're looking at social media, which is part of your brand? What's their number one thing that would not help you? Anyone have an idea? All right, I'll tell you.
Wait,
Grant,
we got some.
we got some?
Jacob's saying, I think we just need a moment to let people type. So Jacob says, non-professional posts. So Jacob, what do you mean by such, maybe, what could those be? And then we have another question. guess here, Leah says posts that might counter their mission statement. So that employer's mission statement.
Oh, that's very insightful. That's very good. And as was Jacob's too. Any others? All right, the number one thing according to research that I've seen is grammar and typos. Grammar and typos, which is troubling because we're so used to firing stuff off quickly so much of the day, we may not proofread as much. You gotta take a little bit more time. And also, I do it myself. If I see a typo, I go back and change it. So grammars and typos, number one. What do you think number two is? It's a little bit related to potentially some of the other answers earlier. It is extreme religious and political views. Notice it didn't say religious or political, extreme. So you need that word in there. So if you're way out there and posting it, that will not help you. It's okay to be religious. It's okay to have faith. It's okay to be political. In this day and age, everything's political. It's this idea of not being extreme, all right? And I really doubt anyone on this webinar is. Certainly hoping not. All right, number three, what's the third biggest thing? This is the least of the three concerns that employers have. Anyone want to take a shot? I mentioned it earlier. It is sort of the real big partier type post that all it looks like you do is go out and hang out, right? But think about this. When you go to the library in those days when we went to the library, or you're just cooking food or reading a book, you know, before no one would really take a picture. It's not that remarkable. They take pictures when we're out and socializing with others. That's how humans are. So you might spend 90% of your time reading a book, 10% going out. But on social media, it looks like, because of people's pictures of you going out, that's what you do. So just something to think about, but again, not worry about, because that's not the top for employers. And also, they're looking for the stuff that's really sort of also extreme socializer all the time. That's all they do, all right? So let me pause. Any thoughts? Any reactions? Comments? This could be by chat or any which way. All right.
Yeah, well, I do see people maybe reaching for a keyboard. I was thinking as you were speaking, Scott, how a big thing about it is the data and privacy filters. Just try to perceive everything that you put out there from the general public's view. It's one thing for there to be, like, you know, you have families who perceive your content one way, and then you have friends who get a certain level of access on a different platform. But what does it look like to the general public, so that you can curate your information? Now, you don't have to completely ban yourself or completely keep it antiseptic. Just how are you controlling your settings?
Anju, this is a great point. Thank you. This is not about don't do this, don't do that, be scared of this. This is more of think proactively and positively too, which we will talk about very soon in LinkedIn, is how to promote, how to sort of publish, how to present. What do you want out there? What makes sense to be out there? And maybe making a decision. Oh, I don't need to post yet another, you know, picture of my breakfast. You know, maybe I'll mix it up and do dinner, or maybe I won't do any food this week. So it's the idea of thinking through what you want to promote and how you want to be perceived. So I want to.
Scott?
So
Yes.
I accidentally lowered Leah's hand.
Why would you do that?
I got a little excited. I was, oh, there's a hand. So Leah, you're welcome to chat or use your mic.
Yeah, chatting was just taking too long, so I figured I'd just ask the question. I just wondered, other than LinkedIn, if there is a type of profile that employers tend to look to, like, do they look at your Instagram? Do they look at your Facebook more often? Like, is there a type of social media that they tend to look at?
So still the two biggest at this point are LinkedIn and Facebook, right? But depends on the industry. If you're in news, then Twitter for sure would be something they'd be looking at. If you're into photography or visuals or graphic design, Instagram, right? Can you imagine someone that would say, I'm into photography, I love graphic design, but they're not on Instagram? It doesn't make sense, right? And this is another thing Sometimes some of my students have maybe been a little too clever in locking down their Facebook so no one can see it, i.e. employers and adults. Well, that might give an employer saying, well, what do they have to hide, right? When there might be nothing to hide, but that's the perception. So again, it's just a little bit about thinking through how you're perceived out there and just being smart about it and being comfortable, right? In the end, you decide. You're your own chief marketing officer. You're your own CMO. Leah, thanks for that question. That was great. So I want to leave us this section with two key things. One is this article that was the seminal piece. This was almost written pre-internet, which makes it now 10 times more accurate in terms of the implications. And it was an article called in Fast Company magazine, if you've heard of that, titled Brand Called You. I'm going to pull it up on the screen right here. And this is what started it all. And you can see, I'm sure everyone can guess what the brand is that's there. Who can say it first? Tide, right? So this piece, which we will share with you, and this was done by Tom Peters. It's a long read, but a perfect summary to understand these concepts and then realize, wow, if this was true then, it's only more true now. And I just don't want you to, I'm not going to leave you just with reading. I want to now pull up, with Anju's help, the slide share, which we're going to send after the webinar today, because this goes through some of the sort of key aspects and things to think about. We'll show you a few slides. We won't go through every one, a forced march through the PPT and slide share. But again, we'll send this to you afterwards. And this is one of the best I've seen. And that said, it has an interesting element in it. One of the people they focus on is Lance Armstrong. And I think when this person made this PPT, Lance Armstrong was a Tour de France winner 7 times with no drug scandals and no lies and nothing had been admitted to Oprah and no documentaries. So Lance Armstrong suffered what's called brand erosion, right? He was way up here. And he was the biking god of the planet. And then after what happened, his brand eroded and he's now vastly different in his brand trust. And so on that slide share, we'll just look at the first couple of slides so you'll know when you get this later by email that you're in the right place, if it's handy and visible. And these takes you through some of the things to think about, some of the questions to ask, and how you can approach this right here. And you can find a lot of these. This is just one of the ones that I like. So we can just hop through a few slides, undo, and tells you, there you go, brand's not a logo for sure. Love this, perceptions. So your reputation in some ways is everything. How do you build up your reputation to where you want it to be? If you say you're an environmentalist, well, you can never litter. For sure, you can never be seen littering, right? Because that would affect your brand and your reputation. It wouldn't be real. We'll look at a couple more slides. So we all know these obvious ones. And Starbucks is still challenged with stuff. Water isn't just water, it's Evian, right? Wow. The Target one's so easy to see with not even a word. And this is a key part. What makes you different? You know, what makes a brand different? What do you have? What do you offer? Who are you that's different? And this forces you to think about these things in a way to understand yourself. And don't laugh. You might ask your family and friends, hey, tell me the top 5 words that come to mind when you think of me. I know it seems weird and awkward, but I think you'll be very surprised. They'll say some things that be like, wow, okay, maybe I should use that, right? Because that's, again, their perceptions of you. So without even names, you know who these people are: Madonna, Steve Jobs, Bono, Muhammad Ali, and there's Lance Armstrong. And then from this point on, after Lance Armstrong, it gets into, and by the way, I should just admit to you, I've never met Lance Armstrong, but I feel so powerfully what he did. And also realizing that, hey, it seems like everyone else was cheating, which doesn't make it okay. It just seems everyone else does it. I still feel like, hey man, the guy really won those races. That's, for me, how strong his brand is. Right, wrong, indifferent, etc. But it's an example of how people get attached to things. And from Lance Armstrong on, you can see this gets into personal brands and the steps that you should do, things you should think about, okay? So let's, That's a perfect point to leave it on. So let's give it a applause right there. We're all brands. We'll send this on. All right, I'm going to take a break. Okay. Any last thoughts on personal branding before we jumped into LinkedIn and virtual networking? Anyone on anything that's been said so far? Boy, I know we're supposed to jump through it, but we're just going to have to try and get this in. We'll send out this link later about making an email signature, with some of you that have emailed me already have. If you don't have an email signature, it's the quickest way to become more professional and improve your brand. Anju, is it possible to bring up the student sites, specifically Jessica Joy DeCesus, who is the third link on the student examples?
Yep.
What I'm going to show you is you don't have to just rely on LinkedIn. You can build your own website. And there's a lot of free sites like Wix, like Flavors, like WordPress, Strikingly, so many different sites. And this is what I have students do in my classes. I've created a class on personal branding. I also have them doing for public relations class. And the most beautiful one I've ever seen is this one. So Jessica Joy, she just graduated about a year ago. Look what she put together to brand herself. It's very creative. It's very personal. It's the facts in there when she graduated. And the best part's still coming. I mean, she tells where she comes from, who she is, what she's into, her family. How do you not like someone who shows her family? And then look at these designs that she made. She made these designs. I just love it. So to me, when I see something like this, and maybe to you, it speaks, oh, wow, they are talented. They are creative. And then they get the professional stuff. They have their resume in here, you know. And she's now with a firm in Washington, Edelman Public Relations. And if you really resonate with Jessica Joy, please send her an email and put my name in the subject line. I'm sure she'd be glad to hear from you. She's a great person. So I wanted to take a little time to show you one example of one student and how they put together their own website as part of their personal brand. Any questions on this or any thoughts, including does anyone have their own website? All right, we're going to hop now to LinkedIn. This is, in my view, the most important social network that you could be on, which means not just be on it, but to be active. Most every employer has a page or a group. Most every employer is looking for people there. There's a ton of ways you can use LinkedIn. Even in an hour, we couldn't go through all the ways. I mean, aside from applying for internships and jobs, you can learn about things. You could follow a company. You could connect with people. You could learn skills. They're doing webinars. And in case you didn't know it, LinkedIn views themselves not as a job company. They now view themselves as a media and publishing company. So they want people to share things. They want people to post. They want people to comment. That way people are there more often than just once in a blue moon when they're looking for a job. So what do you think? How many users does LinkedIn have? I wish I could vote. I think I know the answer. Do we have any answers?
Yeah, the responses are coming in. Most people are thinking about 610 million.
That sounds like a winner, doesn't it?
Interesting. Michael is chatting a rogue answer, 80 million.
I like that. Well, Michael went off the grid. So what's the correct answer?
Jade says 300 million. So yeah, it is 610 million for the number of users that LinkedIn has. Doesn't mean they're all active, but that's the number of registered users they have as of a 2020 number. So it's pretty large.
That's about twice as big as the population of the United States. And more importantly, it's people that are in a position to hire you. It's your future colleagues. I got an email out of the blue, excuse me, I got a message on LinkedIn out of the blue several years ago to meet with someone named John from a company I'd never heard of called Internews, which interestingly is right here in DC by UCDC. And he saw my LinkedIn profile and wanted to hire me. I'd never met him. This happens regularly, right? More often than you might think. And on the flip side, in terms of you applying. So what I want to go through is, I'm going to show you my profile real quick. And
Wait, so
yes, I do.
Well, I think you have some stats. You have some other LinkedIn stats that you might want to share.
Let's have you really want to share them. So let's have you.
Okay. Well, so even though there's that many registered, I'm just going to say a few more notes about LinkedIn. And sorry, Scott, your mic is very scratchy to me. Okay, thank you. So I hope we didn't lose him. Okay, I think he just, yeah, so LinkedIn, it has 610 registered users, but even its number of active users, I don't know, we'll send it in the post email, but it is very sizable, the number of active users they have every month. And Scott will go into this further, Professor Talon will go into this further of how it is just like any other social platform where people are going every day. But it'll become clear as we
Can I give a couple more stats now? Can I give a couple of stats?
Yeah.
So 90 million senior level influencers and 63 million decision makers use LinkedIn. 90 million senior, 63 million. You only need one to hire you. 92% of Fortune 5 companies use LinkedIn, and they're using it to recruit and find you. This is how they're getting their talent pool for the future. 50% of companies had a LinkedIn company page several years ago, and that's only higher now. There's all sorts of these stats that show that companies use it. The biggest thing is finding you. Another reason they use it is to build sort of a team spirit and also to share their brands. So there's a lot of reasons beyond just looking for a job or an internship why companies are on LinkedIn, okay?
Yeah.
So
regarding these, and then, so Scott, in the poll, there's also this question of what can you actually do on LinkedIn? What is the functionality? And we have all these, we've listed networking, market and company research, applying for a job, taking tutorials, following brands. So most people have selected a lot of things that are very related to job searching and, the most traditional idea of networking. But really, it's all of these things. You're able to do all of these functions and more on LinkedIn. And I know we're proselytizing LinkedIn a lot. It is very powerful, but it is just something that many people are invested in right now that we want to flag it for you as a professional tool.
And something to use, not just be on. I'm sure most of you are on it, but you have to be active. Imagine going to a party, standing in the corner, not talking to anyone. Well, you're at the party, but you're not really at the party. With LinkedIn, you need to be active, okay? Those were some interesting responses. They flashed up really quick, though. I just saw a couple responses there. And I'll say this, if you gave me a false choice of, okay, only use LinkedIn to apply for jobs and job search, or, go through regular sort of applications and sort of regular job sites, Indeed, Glassdoor, etc., I would choose LinkedIn. There's too much there not to, but you don't have to make that choice. You just have to remember to use it. And part of using it is, if you're interested in National Geographic, join their LinkedIn page. If you want to work for Procter & Gamble, join their LinkedIn group and be active there, post comments. And one of the tips I was going to share later or share now is when you're in the same group with someone, you can message them directly. You don't have to be linked to them. They don't have to accept your request. You can message them directly because you have that commonality of being in the same group, right? So it's certainly today, in the times we're in, vital for you to be active on LinkedIn. And this is why I hope you connect to me. I've already accepted a couple of people that reached out earlier. Thank you. I have now, I think, 4,000 to 5,000 connections from California to New York to DC to Europe. But the key is, once you connect with me, is then find out who I know and see if you should link with them. This is how you build your network. This is how you create opportunities. This is how you learn, and this is especially how you're going to succeed ahead. If if COVID-19 ended tomorrow, I'd still be saying the same things with LinkedIn. It's even more so until we get to that point, okay? So I know Andrew wants me to slow down, but I get so excited on this topic because there's so much to it, and I think it's so important. So number one thing right now is please find me and reach out. If you want to put a personal message, that's great. It's often wise if you don't know someone, but now you know me, but I will accept your request, and then you can build your network from people I know, right? Especially from Washington, D.C. So we promised to review a profile and look to improve it. So we had 2 volunteers, Jade and Sophia. Do you want to bring one of those up now, Anju? All right, Jade. Okay. So let's take a moment and look, and then see what things we can advise for Jade to do. And Jade, are you on the call, and can you tell us a little bit about your sort of photo across the banner photo across the top in front of what looks to be a lake?
I wanted it to be kind of welcoming, because I know when it's very professional, it can kind of be intimidating, or people might forget that I am an actual person that enjoys going out and being with friends and family. So I thought that my banner picture on the lake would be a little more realistic as to who I am, aside from professional aspects.
I love it, because you have your professional photo there and your profile pic right there, right? And so I love your thinking. The only suggestion I might have is to get a little closer so we see you and less of the lake would be my only suggestion. I really like your thinking though.
Thank you.
All right, now let me ask this question. Where is your intro? There it is. Okay, there's your about. Okay, so let's read this. So I like what Jade has put here with skills, and she's very welcoming. And Jade, maybe you want to fine tune that last thing, and please reach out if you have any questions, if you want to connect, or if you have a job opportunity or intern opportunity. You can be direct like that, right? So it's not just questions, it's about how someone might be able to help you. Anju, any thoughts, or anyone? I'm just reading through.
Yeah. First off, I'd love to start with what I'm so impressed by. I just like the epithets you gave yourself here.
Your
Working
title.
advocate. Yes. So epithets are, I guess it's a literary term to explain like a short descriptive phrase about somebody. So working advocate, aspiring lawyer, hashtag made by Jade. Don't know what that is, but might check it out, because I'm like, what is this hashtag?
It is very creative, and this is a key thing. So when recruiters use LinkedIn, first, if you don't have a profile photo, if they can't see your face, they'll skip right past you, because they're hiring people, right? And people have faces. So you got to have your photo there. It should be professional. And one thing I've noticed with the students here is sometimes they'll take a photo from a social night out, maybe a prom night. They'll crop and cut everyone out but themselves, and they'll be in a gown or tuxedo. No, you want to make it professional like Jade has here, right? And you don't need to hire a professional photographer. Have someone you know take your photo, or do it yourself, but make it look, in a sense, professional for what you want to do.
Yeah.
Super important. Then this title, because this is how recruiters and employers are searching for you, right? So what's your title beyond just student? Do you notice that Jade doesn't say student there? Aspiring lawyer. What do you want to be? That's what you should have in the title. And I love the creativity, Jade. I've not seen this before. You hashtag and personalize it. So what does made by Jade mean?
So I'm trying to get back into it. I posted yesterday, but a while back when I was posting more frequently, I would post maybe things that I learned or experiences that I had, and then I would hashtag them like that, so that if you click on the hashtag, it's all of my specific posts that I have made. So it's easier to filter through them.
Oh, on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Wow.
It might be.
Wow. Jade, this is impressive and clever. How did you come up with this idea?
I had a friend that was getting into LinkedIn, and she recommended that I organize it that way. And so I started using it a little more. But I actually learned this from a friend.
I love this idea. So hashtag winner, smart stuff. And I'm going to now give you
Hashtag
full
winner.
credit and use it myself.
Hashtag winning.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have a lot of traction on all your LinkedIn posts. It's very vibrant. So
and why that's important, just to scooch in real quick on that, is because this way others can see Jade. People are commenting. That means someone connected to that commentator is getting a notification. Hey, Joe commented on Jade. Well, what did Joe, who I know, say about Jade? And all of a sudden this person knows Jade. Oh, wow, aspiring lawyer, I'm at a law firm. This is how the world works. It's communication networks. It's 6 degrees of separation. And this is why Jade is doing a wonderful job of putting stuff out there, publishing, and presenting herself.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think the like kind of what I could say top fold, I don't think it's an official term, but you know, as if it's like a newspaper, the top half of it, it's very effective. You got your friendly, you got your professional, you got your epithets, you got your university affiliations. Awesome.
And just real quick, technically what LinkedIn calls this area that has working advocate, aspiring lawyer, that's what they call the title, right? So for your title, you really want to think beyond just student at UC. You want to think adding your major, at least, adding what you want to do, something about you. So it's more than just student, because they can the recruiters can already find you by student status. What else can you add to your title that makes you findable to others besides just student? Mm-hmm. And this part right here, this summary section, this intro summary about, is vital, including to having keywords in there, again, so recruiters can find you. So let's just say that you were into public policy. Well, and a little bit Jade is right here. She talks about policy and legal research. You'd really want to populate this area with words connected to public policy, like government, like transparency, like public benefit, all these words that are part of that world. That way people can find you. It's super important that you fill out at least a paragraph in this section called the about, the intro, the summary.
Okay. And I think my recommendation, this isn't the space to be nitpicky, but I think that Jade, you can kind of bypass maybe some introductory lines like this. If you want to get people faster to your mission and to the words that are the hot keywords to what you're looking for. Just so that it reads less like a letter, since this is more of a description where someone will come and find it rather than, because like everything up top is really supposed to be that brand for you. And then that's kind of this friendly introduction. And you give a very friendly one. So I think you've already done this task up ahead, like up above. And I think these lines are very substantive.
I think Anju is correct, and you should just, Jade, think about starting off with, you know, I want to tell you where my passions lie. Boom, that's going to catch a reader's attention, and then you go from there. Does this make sense, Jade?
It does. I was thinking, as I was reading my about section, I was thinking of ways to fix it. Like I could probably take out a line at the top and the bottom.
Less is more. Because this means that the recruiter is going to have a better chance of reading everything you write because it's shorter. Okay.
Yeah. Also, because we had to press more to open it up. So whatever is eye-catching before you open up that accordion is pretty critical.
So that's another key thing. Before they open it up, they just see that top line, right?
Yeah.
So what's going to grab them in that first line? It's sort of like in an email. When you get an email, you can sort of read that first part of it. It's very similar here. All right, so you can see, Jade, where if you take Anju's advice, it's going to really be like, wow, this Jade knows herself, she knows what she's into, and she's declaring it. All right, so you're part of different groups and organizations. That's great. You have a good chunk of followers, several hundred. and you have comments on others. And this is an example, people, of Jade being at the LinkedIn party. She's commenting on other people's things, just like you may have done on Facebook, Instagram when you could comment, etc. Then she goes into her background. And what I love, if you just stop for a second, is Jade has the logos for her organizations. So if your organization has a logo that's usable on LinkedIn, it makes it so much easier, again, for a recruiter to go through.
So the way Jade has done it is I'm guessing many people here, we should have actually, I think, sampled who does not have a LinkedIn perhaps, but the way Jade did it is she created an official affiliation by when you create a listing of where you've worked, you put the hyperlinked version of your organization, which auto-populates the logo, and then by clicking on it, I'll be able to learn more about that organization. So wherever possible, affiliate yourself with existing organizations and LinkedIn pages and other profiles, because that's the way to then insert yourself into these networks.
I want to give a shout out to Lucas, Jacob, and Lauren, who have already sent me a LinkedIn request, which I've just now accepted. So if we scroll down towards the bottom again, just to finish this up, and if we have time, we can see about Sophia's. So there's education, volunteer experience is important. Okay, skills and endorsements, all right? These is an interesting area because sometimes you get endorsed for stuff you can't do. People endorse me for Excel. I cannot do Excel. I can do a lot of other things. What you want to look for is what's called the recommendation, okay? What this is you request from someone that knows you, that you work with, maybe at school, and you have to do it through LinkedIn. And you say, hey, maybe to your former intern, coworker, supervisor, would you endorse me on LinkedIn? This is so much more important to recruiters to have a third party, especially someone you work with, have even a paragraph that says, Jade is creative, hardworking, and ethical. I cannot wait till she's a lawyer because she's going to do so much good. She helped us at our law firm last summer do this, this, and this. That one paragraph is worth way more than the skills and endorsements, okay? So don't sweat the skills and endorsements, right? Those sort of happen. People that know you sort of endorse you for things. Try and get 1 to 2 what they call recommendations. And you can find on LinkedIn where to do this. You have to go through the LinkedIn system. You can't send them an email. You can, but you still have to go through LinkedIn. So recommendation, find that on LinkedIn. If you have someone especially you've worked with or someone that knows your work, 1 paragraph. And by the way, you still control it. You approve what they write. So after they write it, then you say, I accept, all right? So I want to make sure this stays in your brain about recommendation, not just endorsements. Anything more you see here, Anju?
Yeah, I wanted to mention one note here about skills. LinkedIn now has a lot of assessments that you can take. So for example, I'm a communications professional and I often work in digital communications. And so sometimes I want to demonstrate to potential employers that I can do HTML and CSS, or that I know how to do just devise SEO strategy. So I know I just threw out a lot of jargon out there, but what I'm saying is if you have any particular skills, especially if you work in a very technical field, you can take LinkedIn assessments that are virtual, like they're essentially quizzes, and LinkedIn is endorsing you having that you have met a certain standard of knowledge and facility over that topic. And I've seen how it's now linked to job postings, and how it may just be a great credentialing system for you, especially starting out.
This ties into a concept called digital badges. So one thing, so I've already mentioned, I mentioned the recommendation. Now Anju mentioned the skills. So now your job is, hey, what are these skills and certifications that are on LinkedIn? See if there's any that interest you and go for it. And then once you get it, LinkedIn will populate your profile. Again, this will help you, right? So the recommendation from someone you've worked with, hopefully, or someone that knows you, and then these skills and certifications. all in all, Jade, a lot of good stuff. Think just, maybe showing more of you up close on the banner photo, and then also tweaking sort of the intro. So Sophia volunteered hers right here. So, wow, Sophia, you already look like you're a professional, currently in aerospace and defense tech, right? There's nothing in the title about student, right? So this is really a great example, another great example of how to do your title. And she's got a great banner photo, casual professional photo. Everything looks good. Some activity here. Let's look at Sophia's intro and summary real quick, Anju.
I don't have a summary.
Okay. So this is great. So look for a paragraph that will introduce yourself. You heard what we said about Jade. That's going to really help, because those key words in your intro, that's how recruiters find you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I just don't know how to go about it yet, and so I guess I just kept putting it off, and I still don't have my intro for some time.
So no problem. So Anju, let's end with showing the student examples.
Sure.
And these are straight from LinkedIn, and you could find these on LinkedIn or Google. Basically focused on college students and what to do as a college student on LinkedIn. And by the way, a couple more shout outs to Sophia, Emily, and Leah for sending LinkedIn invites. I've accepted them all live just now. And what we're pulling up here is just a student sample that LinkedIn has done, right? So this person, social media branding specialist seeking marketing internship. It's got an avatar. So there's the about right there. It's very basic, but Sophia and everyone, you can get the idea. And there's another way to do it. You can do bullet points, okay? I like bullet points. It really lets a recruiter quickly see what you have in your intro. Look how short theirs was, right? So this student sample we will send out, and it will be, I think, helpful. It's very basic.
And I guess I just want to make a note here, just looking at the student sample. I'm sure many of you, right now, like the brand is particularly, because it's so searchable online, LinkedIn and any other online platforms that you're on where you have a profile are pretty crucial to just curate. But of course, one of the most quintessential documents that describe you is your resume, right? And so if you don't have a built out LinkedIn, just start with your resume and adapt it to how it can, adapt it so it can fit on LinkedIn. And there's some really great strategies that this student sample used, including numbers to highlight the impact of what they've achieved, and also making it very tangible. And so I guess I just wanted to make a note about resumes here. Whether you work on LinkedIn or your resume, they will serve each other. So just invest time in either one and you'll already have a leg up.
So what Anju just mentioned is something you're gonna have to write down because it wasn't part of our topic. It's called quantifying your resume. And the head of Google's HR, which has some funky name like head of people at Google, he sort of did this. So if you put in quantify your resume, Google guy, you'll come up with his personal formula. So Laszlo Bach is his name. So this is how you quantify. So for example, if you say that you deliver newspapers, well, you would say you would deliver 100 newspapers every morning. You're quantifying your resume. You wrote press releases. You wrote 10 press releases a week, quantifying your resume. So this is a very helpful thing to bolster up your resume and let a recruiter or employer see how much you've done. You put numbers and facts behind what you've already done, not just describing it. So we'll send this out as well. And there's one more link I just want to open up so people can see it, even though we're going to send it. And that's that one about the 10 tips for students, Anju. So this is a great one right here. These 10 are just helpful things to do, and we'll send this out afterwards. It's part of, your sort of summer UCDC work stuff and post-professional development seminar, webinar. You can obviously, these photos are wrong, right? And that's part of the fun lesson on this tip, so we'll send that out. We want to be respectful of time and time limits. So before we say goodbye, I want to see, are there any final thoughts from anyone? Any questions, comments, concerns, anything anyone either orally, verbally, or by chat or digital hand want to ask?
Hi, Scott, this is Mike. I have a question that I put in the chat, but I know I've gotten it from students, as have other staff members. And that is, on LinkedIn, what is your opinion about connecting to people that you don't know? And how do you go about doing that? What's the proper etiquette?
So 2 questions in one. It is absolutely vital you connect to people you don't know. Why? You don't need LinkedIn to connect to people you know. You already know them. The whole point, and this is what's called weak ties. If you haven't heard this term, weak ties, Google it. Strong ties are your friends, your family. Interestingly, it's weak ties that help you the most. This is why you do want to reach out. And I'm going to give you a couple quick examples. We'll go a couple of minutes over, and then Anju is going to tell you about Selena and why she's on LinkedIn. But basically, when you reach out to someone, let's say now that you're connected to me, and let's say that there's a guy named Matt Banks you see connected to me. He's a real person, and he's in the environmental world. He worked for WWF, World Wildlife Foundation. Anju's going to pull him up here. And let's say you really want to work at WWF. Even though he's no longer there, he knows a lot of people. So what you would do is let's just do it live, Anju.
Yeah.
So add a note. You would add a note. And Anju, let's just write it as if you had never met Matt.
Matt, heard of the great program you lead at WWF. This is not, I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I'm on the fly.
right. So it's past tense. It's past tense led. This is fine. Scott Talon has mentioned you. I'd love to connect.
Right. So if there's any commonality, highlight it.
Commonality.
Okay, how about like this? So I'll say from Scott Talon, and then I would say, honestly, I'm writing this really quickly, but I belabor these things because it does require some thought. I'll say.
So normally you wouldn't be writing this live in front of others. So you would say another line.
Pursuing environmental policy.
See you, Jade. Good luck at work.
Specifically.
All right, and then you can just sort of sign off. I'd love to connect.
Okay.
Absolutely, Jade. Please follow up. Thank you for sharing your LinkedIn profile. And you too, Sophia. So then done?
Yes. Well, I don't want to do it, but I just pressed done and it would go to him. But I think it's especially in DC, when you're going to learn about contacts at a talk or through an event or whatever, you can always use whatever platform you had in common to send them a message.
Yes.
For example, I attend webinars, and these are experts in certain fields, and I don't know them, but I look forward to learning about them, particularly so just even recently, as an example, I wrote to people saying, hey, I really enjoyed your talk. And that's enough to already say, I'm invested in your work.
Right.
So I really enjoyed your talk. And then if you want to really tailor it to show that you're really listening, I really, this point that you made about this was innovative. I would love to have coffee with you to tell you about my thought, or to share ideas.
Right. So there's 2 or 3 sentences. It's very important with people you don't know that you want to be connected to think about doing a tailored message on LinkedIn, as opposed to just sending it. Let them know the commonality, okay? So just to wrap up on this, reach out to people you don't know. I hope you do it to people that I know, and let them know the commonality, and write them a note of why you're connecting. Whatever it is that's on their profile, where they work, where they went to graduate school, what they're doing, then please let them know that. Don't make it long. A couple of sentences is all you need, okay? This is how you grow your network, and this is how you're going to get help more from these weak ties and people you don't know yet, or may not meet physically ever, but you know them through LinkedIn. And it's such a trusted network that it's so powerful. All right, we are several minutes over, and that's A-okay. This has been, to me, interesting. I hope to you interesting, and more importantly, I hope it was beneficial. there's a lot here. It's okay if you feel a little bit sort of overwhelmed. We'll follow up. You'll have some links to digest, chew on, digest, think about, and then take some steps. And remember, you're always building your brand. It's always changing. It's always becoming something new and different. And that's okay. So super excited. You're UC, go California, go UC. Super excited for the UCDC program. My professor at UC Davis, Larry Berman, was the first director. And when I was mayor of Lafayette, a citizen there, Bruce Kane, as a professor, was a second. And now Helen Shapiro, who I'm delighted to work with and I respect, is now the director here. UC never leaves you. And that's certainly true for me. And I certainly know it's true for you too. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Scott and Judy.